Hi, Deepak. How are you?
Fine, 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 fine.
So before we start anything, could you tell us a bit about your story and how have you reached? And I think your company is doing pretty well. Profits have almost doubled. So I'll get into all that specifics later. But then tell us a bit about your story, and would love for everyone to know about it.
No, actually, I'm born and brought up in Calcutta. So initially, I did my uh, primary education from Calcutta and secondary education from a place in Mumbai. It's college. I don't even remember the name. But after that, it was for a few days. I couldn't continue my education much. So it was hardly a month that I could attend college, and then I had to come back to Calcutta for looking after my business.
Which year
So
was it? Which year was it?
82. So I'm 52 now. So at that point of time, I had to give up my studies. So I couldn't study much. But all the experience that I gained was with practical experience of growing with the business. So earlier we were shopkeepers. We were just selling electrical goods in our shop. So maybe if you visited an electrical shop, we sell bulbs and wires and fixtures to connect a home. So those kind of things we were doing initially. So it was at that time when there was a sudden requirement for me to get into business. So I was, I think, around 18 at that time when my father told me that it is an emergency situation. You have to now start holding hands with me and running the business. So at that time, I couldn't concentrate on both sides. So
Sure.
you can practically say that my education as I just completed my primary education. That's the only part that I've done. So growing with the business, I've learned a lot. So over last 30 years, because we started from scratch, every element of business is very well known to me because we've done it on a micro level. So let's say we started our first manufacturing unit where maybe I was the operator of the unit. I was the person who was doing the testing. So you can understand if you're starting from a shopkeeper where you hardly have three people in your company, you have to do all kinds of jobs. So from that experience, gradually, today we have an employee base of around 2,000 people in our organization. We have almost like 42 offices across the country. So it was not because of anything else, but the experience that I gained over the past few years. So from electrical business, we started coming into manufacturing. Then in manufacturing, we started building our manufacturing base. Our unit started expanding, and in 10 years we had reached a sizable unit. But after 10 years, then we decided that we have to take it to the next level. So when we started doing that, at that time, I think it was in around 2000, when we started going into turnkey projects, which would mean electrification of towns, electrification of villages. So that is when we thought that apart from manufacturing, we should now venture into this also. So then we started taking up small jobs of electrifying a few villages, electrifying a few towns, and then from there we started picking up. So after that, we got a very good boost also because of government scheme of electrification to all households. This has been the agenda of government since 20 years now. Even when you hear Prime Minister talking about our country during Independence Day, he will always talk about Ghar Ghar Bijli. So it was only because of these schemes that our company could grow on the platform. So gradually in 20 years, we reached a stage where today we are the best turnkey contractors as far as power distribution is concerned. See, in the power sector, whenever you talk to anybody about the sector, they'll say that power sector is in red category. There is a problem. But power sector can be divided into three parts. One is generation, one is transmission, and one is distribution. So we are into the distribution part of it. And in distribution, the most important thing is execution of the project and closure of the project. Now, to give you a few examples, our company has been recognized in such a way that Power Grid Corporation of India, which is the top authority in our country, has given me contracts worth 200 crores taken away from Punj Lloyd and given to me that you do the execution, and Punj Lloyd being the main contractor who submitted all the performance guarantees and other things, I would not have to do anything, but I would be given the rights of a main contractor, being a subcontractor. So you can imagine Power Grid doing that. Apart from that, Power Grid has also choosing among all companies like L&T, Siemens, Schneider. There are so many companies in India. In spite of that, there is a place called Ganjam in Orissa, where a contract worth 140 crores was awarded to us without any tendering, because they wanted the job to be started from tomorrow. That was the way it was conveyed to us, that can you start the job from tomorrow? And that contract was awarded to us without any tendering. We were just shown 4 or 5 contracts. One was executed by Tata, one by NCC, one by Voltas. And then we were asked to choose among the contracts, that whichever you choose, we'll give you the price according to that contract. We don't have time for tendering, but go ahead and do the job. So that's the kind of confidence Power Grid has on us. Apart from this, you may also have heard of a company called EMC, which is now in a financial mess. It has gone to the NCLT. That company was doing a job in Bihar, and the chairman of Bihar Electricity Board, Mr. Pratyay Amrit, called me, and he offloaded job worth 800 crores across the table straight away to me with direct, the same way that you have all the rights of a contractor being a subcontractor. So in that way, these are the reasons why our company could grow, because our execution is very strong. So you can imagine contracts worth 800 crores coming to us without any tendering, without any performance guarantee or any other processes that we needed to go through. It came directly. Similarly here. So that is the main thing, that the execution part of our company is very strong in turnkey projects. Apart from that, even our company in Eastern India, we have gradually grown and increased our product base. So let's say there are a few items in the railways. We are the only company producing those items in Eastern India. After Chhattisgarh, you won't find a single manufacturer for those items in Eastern India. So if a product has to be carried from north or west, if it has to come to the eastern part of our country, it will fetch an additional cost of around 3 to 4% on freight side. So those kind of things we have done, innovative solutions we've come up with. So our product base is very strong. Many products we are making, we are the only players in Eastern India. And that is the main reason why we could really grow so quickly. And you'll see all our transactions are only with government departments. We do not do any business with any private sector. So that way, that has been a strong point for our company also, because all the financials that you look at is never cooked up. So even our purchases are from government departments. Our top line is also to all government departments, not a single sale to any private sector. So that is one thing that, of course, the way our corporates are performing nowadays, that is why I had to mention this. Because you see a lot of corporates just blowing up their company's financials and ultimately bursting. So that is why I mentioned this. And apart from that, there is one more big advantage, that we have a big policy that we follow. That is, don't over leverage ourselves. That is, that in last few years, our manufacturing area is around 20 acres. Our plant is in a area of 20 acres, and we have tried to avoid taking any term loan. So maybe till date, we have never taken any term loan for capex. It has always been from internal accruals. So we try not to leverage ourselves too much. Like for example, contracts, I've executed more than 3,000 crores worth of contracts. So in contracts, we have the option of taking mobilization advance, 10% mobilization advance. I have never taken a single rupee of mobilization advance. So the main policy, that do not over leverage ourselves, that was the main thing that has really helped me improve my bottom line, as well as get better control over the company, and the company has grown in that way. So that has been another important factor for our growth. Third important factor has been our policy that we should not face a problem frequently. That is, if our company is facing one problem, that problem should be tackled in such a way that it does not arise ever for at least 2-3 years or maybe 5 years. So we can't give a temporary solution to any problem that comes to us. So for that, we are using IT as a very big tool in our company. So every process is very well mapped, and a way is ultimately found not to let that problem occur at least for next few years. So that has also been very helpful. And apart from that, both my sons have joined business, so they are also very good support to me. And then I'm also a grandfather. So
congratulations.
so that way, that inspiration is also there for taking the company forward. And then the company team, of course, is very good. Over the past few years, we have an employee base which is very strong, and the employees are very faithful with the company. They're growing with the company, so that way employees are also very good. So this is the main reason for the growth.
How many employees do you have now?
Around 2,000.
2,000 across India or in Eastern India?
Across India.
Okay. I think it's very interesting. You're that breed of an entrepreneur which believes in very less debt and looks at operational efficiency. And quite interestingly, you've been dealing with the government, and you're very proud of saying that the whole thing is transparent and so on. So that's very the whole idea of the entrepreneurship that we want to promote is, look, if you do something transparently, that story has to be spoken about, and that inspires a lot of new others into the whole thing. And I also noticed in your balance sheet that in addition to all these things, to the 2019-20, in addition to increasing your profitability, you also have increased your reserves and surplus by almost 100%, if I'm not wrong. So again, what is are you like very risk averse in that sense, always being ready for the bad times? Is that the way you operate? Is that your psychology?
Apart from that, we are also always trying to reserve ourselves for good opportunities. So very recently, a good opportunity has come. There is a company which has come into NCLT, and we are on the process of acquiring that company. So that is why I always keep myself ready from every angle, financially and with a good team, so that if we have to go into any acquisition or any opportunity that comes forth, like let's say for example, I told you an 800 crores coming through. So for that 800 crores project coming through, we need financial backup, we need a team backup. Even Power Grid giving me a contract suddenly when they want us to start from tomorrow itself. So in that case, you need a team and you need finance ready to go ahead. That is the reason why we keep some opportunity ready, or some strength ready to grab an opportunity.
Yeah. So you're looking at inorganically growing as well. I think possibly Gayatri can ask a couple of questions on inorganic growth, and then he spoke about family coming into business and so on. So that I believe you have a couple of questions around that.
Yes, sure, sir. So like you mentioned, both the sons have joined business. So, they've come in recently, or they've been in the part of the business for some time, like in terms of support to you?
Yeah, my elder son has been in business since about 4 or 5 years now.
Sure.
And my younger son has been in business since 3 years now.
Okay.
They are having their own areas which they, like my elder son is into execution of projects and marketing, a bit of finance side. My younger son is into purchases. So they're all starting to gain their experience from the bottom side up.
Sure. And one interesting question, sir, like we ask a lot of our clients is, are the ladies of the house also involved in the business, or they, do they have an idea what's happening? Because we see now in a lot of business families that the women are also encouraged to be a part of the business. So do you have that in the family, or how?
Very frankly, when I was married at that point of time, this concept was not there. So my wife is handling business from the house. So she's handling us. So when the directors
which is very important, sir. Which is very, very important, because she's handling that part well. You all are doing so well here. You all can give your more than 100% here.
And apart
Sure.
from that, both my daughter-in-laws are qualified. They were initially after their marriage, they did start coming to office and they had taken up some job. But after that,
Sure.
as the family starts now, she's uh, got a son, so she has to.
Right.
So that phase comes. So now,
Sure,
until
of
she
course.
does not go up to a certain level where he's independent enough, she can't come back to business.
Sure,
Similarly,
of
with
course.
my younger daughter-in-law. So in that way, they
Sure.
are qualified. They did come to business for a few days,
Right.
but due to this issue, they had to stop.
Sure. So because we do from IFL Wealth, what we do is for families, we have this program for the different members. Like your children obviously are in business for the last 4 to 5 years, but a lot of children, who have just graduated or thinking of joining businesses, we do like a internship program, which we call the Young Leader Program. And
Right.
even for the ladies of the house. So, we had something called Herself, organized for clients pan India, where the ladies of the house were taken, for 2 days away from home, and where they were mentored. There was a networking session. So just wanted to understand, for future reference, if that would be of interest.
At this point, very frankly, all the ladies of the house are not moving around too much until and
Sure,
unless it is a
of course.
in the COVID environment. We try to
Of course.
yeah. So that kind of a situation I don't see coming forth in
Sure.
next 1 year at least.
Sure, of course.
Vaccines are distributed for the next 1 year. I don't see any such situation coming.
Sure.
So
Sure.
maybe and if both of them are having kids who are independent enough to handle themselves, then at that stage
They
it
can
is
look.
at least 2 years away. At
Sure.
that
Sure.
time, maybe they would be interested in yes again. But in next 2 years, if they want to put their whole focus on their kids, then I do not know what will happen. But if they want to come out of that situation, then this option is open after 2 years.
Sure, sir. Thank you, Anas. Thank you.
Yeah, so that brings me to my next question. How has COVID-19 been for you? Well, I think I was going through very limited information is available about your story on the internet. So, but one of the things that I can gather from your brochure is connecting the world. I mean, that's one of the motto that you have. So has that been impacted because of COVID-19? And how has it been for you in the last 6-7 months? From a business standpoint and also from a psychological, personal standpoint. I'd love to know from you.
See, first 3 months, the first quarter of the year was absolutely zero for us because first quarter we couldn't do anything. Everything was shut down completely. But one big advantage that we got during that first quarter was everybody was sitting in the house. Nobody had anything to do. And at that point of time, we could develop more systems in our company. Now, those systems have become so strong that when the environment of business improves, when we have more opportunities coming in, that is the time when our growth will be, in a way, it will be much easier for us to handle the next level of growth. So these 3 months we have used for that, and I would really appreciate my team that during these 3 months they were all only focusing on how to develop better systems. So that part we did use the lockdown period. We used it in that way. After the lockdown, of course, things started picking up gradually. Now we've reached a stage of around, I think, 70-80% of volumes as we were achieving the same quarter last year. So that volume has come back. And in the third quarter and fourth quarter, we expect the volume to reach that same level as last year. But this year is a bit impacted. That is true. But even then, I at least project that my bottom line, which last year was at around 126 crores, as far as I can remember. So I still expect my bottom line to at least cross 80 to 90 crores, with one quarter being lost completely. So in that way, and the basic reason behind this is, again, we've not leveraged ourselves too much. The kind of jobs that we are picking up are those which have profit. And since we do not have to service too much of debt, since we do not have excess leveraging. So that part is also helpful. Usually in our industry, you will not find profit levels, the bottom lines that we are getting, you will not find with our peer partners. The reason being that most of the promoters are my friends and I know what they do. So if they have good profits, they usually try and park it in some new project, take it up somewhere. I mean, if you suck money out of your system, obviously your cost will increase.
Yes. I mean, that's been very impressive about the way you've been doing your business. Even in 2019-20, your revenue took a slight dip, but your profits increased by 100%. So how does your mind work? Is it about, you've got your side in the right place. How does your mind work when it comes to assessing opportunity? Is it about just adding a lot of work or just being efficient and being practical? I mean, how does it really work? Just want to know from you. And secondly, one more question. So you've been put in fact, a very difficult situation in the sense that you mentioned about big names, Tata, and you are basically going to deliver at par with them. That is the expectation. And when you are in a situation like that, if someone like me, or if you're a smaller fish compared to the bigger whales, right? You would sometimes take a hit. One would sometimes expect that you take a hit on a profit, you have to deliver and give a result as good as these guys, and so that we get future work and so on. But in your case, you seem to be thinking on the fact that look, we've got our strengths and we've been delivering it really well, and we don't want to take a hit on a price because we know our strength. We are very aware of our strength. So I just want to know how does your mind play in such situation, and how do you arrange yourself in terms of aligning the financial strategy of the business?
So maybe trying to understand that when we are competing with such big giants, at that point of time, maybe I'm not getting too lured to take jobs which may bring losses to me. That is the kind of thing. See, what happens is whenever opportunity comes across, and if I see that I'm going to lose this opportunity, I do not get excited, because what I try to do is that what I've experienced over past few years is whenever an opportunity comes, if someone is taking grabbing that opportunity at a very low price, ultimately execution is going to become difficult for them. That has been my experience over last few years. Now what happens is once it becomes difficult for them, the client will put pressure on the party that you have to complete the job. Either I'll blacklist you or I will encash your bank guarantees. That is where the reason why companies like EMC, Simplex and all have fallen, because they have buckled to the pressure of the client.
Yeah.
When you're executing a project and if you're not able to do it on time and if you're not able to execute it properly, the kind of pressures that you're going to face is going to be enormous. The pressure will start coming from CM levels also. Like in one project of mine, it was being monitored from PMO office. So you can imagine the kind of pressure that you face after that. So for me, what I do is I wait for those opportunities. When these companies come into that situation, that is where I come in to bail them out. So at that point, I don't get excited. I wait for those opportunities and then I say, see, they have taken up a job which is not practical, not at a practical price. Now, if you want me to come in, it will have to be at my price, at my terms. So that kind of patience I have to have. I can't just jump into the scene and just try to grab everything. So that is the most important. So that is how my opportunity has come. It is all the opportunities that they have lost and it has come into my fold. That's the way we have grown. Even now, I know that a lot of companies are not going to be able to execute the projects and again they'll come to me. So it's a simple thing, just like you do your office. Now, if you've given it to a contractor who's not able to do it, obviously you'll then go to another contractor and the loss will have to come into the earlier one. So it's like that one. So we have to keep that pace.
So what happens from now? Where do you? Okay, now you're thinking about acquisitions, and you've been preparing yourself for inorganic growth. That's what I could hear from you. So, what is the vision or the grand vision that you have that you would want to achieve in the next 5 years? Can you all hopefully someday get to participate in buying your shares in open market? I don't know. What do you have in mind?
See, again, as far as growth is concerned, I'm looking more for a sustainable growth of around 30 to 40% annually in top line and bottom line. It's just that due to some reason, maybe our company's performance is good, we are getting more than that. But realistically, if you ask me, we are not looking for too much. 30-40% growth annually and top line, bottom line is enough for us. That is what I see as sustainable growth. But somehow it has always crossed that level. So that is a good thing for me, and I would of course like that to continue, like my company to perform more than my expectations. So that is one thing. And apart from that, of course, acquisition. Now, if I get opportunities of acquiring a few companies that I can control and help my top line and bottom line, I would like to do that even more. With this company, new company coming in, which I expect to happen within next 1 month, our top line will grow by at least 50%, and bottom line percentage wise it may reduce, but amount wise it will increase, because margins in that industry may not be at that level, because I'm just going to acquire it. So for a few years I need to rebuild that company. So initially the margins may not be at that level. So that's the way I plan to. IPO plans we are not having. IPO as far as going to the open market, not as of now, because I still feel I need to make the company even more stronger to take it to that level. And frankly, at this moment, we do not need to leverage ourselves by offloading our stakes. See, the kind of financial requirement that I have, it is being fed by financial institutions at a very low price. At around average cost is coming to around 7-8%, or maybe maximum 8.5%. Whereas if I have to go to the open market for leveraging myself in that way, I don't think the cost will be less than 15%.
So that's a very interesting thought process. Now, I just want to understand from you. Do you hear about these stories of startups coming in and commanding high valuations and basically growth? And if you look at the model in most of the startups, it's exactly opposite to your model, in the sense that they're all heavily loss making. So and they keep on diluting equity to raise more funds. It's all against possibly the diametrically different world that you live in. I'm more from your school of thought, which is basically to preserve equity and zero leverage and all that stuff. So even the startups that I invest into are also, I want them to be in my school of thought. So I just want to hear from you, how do you react to such stories? I'm sure it'll be like a very interesting newspaper read for you, right? Every time these guys are making 10,000 crores but valued at 10 billion. So what is your, how do you react to such news?
Most of these stories that I hear, when I look at them from a 5 years history or 5 year story of the company, I usually see these companies bursting after 5 to 7 years. In 80% of the cases, maybe in 20% of the cases, they do succeed. But in 80% of the cases I've seen, within 5 to 7 years, they ultimately burst. So I always see that these are somehow inflated. I don't know how, but somehow inflated, and the game is different. The game is totally different. Maybe, and I would never like to understand that game. So for me, the straight line, the straight path is try and keep your company low leveraged. You have to pass on the baton of the company to the next generation. We don't want the next generation to be overburdened in such a way that they cannot continue the legacy of the company. The third generation is also there. So we want the company to grow in a fashion where the upcoming generation can handle it properly.
Has your children come to you with startup ideas and new sector?
They do understand what our policies, what our philosophy is. They do understand that. So they try to consider that whatever we are already doing is in itself quite strong, and the base is also very strong. And if they want to perform, they have a very good base existing where they can perform in whatever level they want. So they don't need a new thought to come in. There are enough opportunity in our company to come up with a new thought. Like if now suppose they want to venture into water distribution. The water distribution is coming up in a very big way in India. Like घर घर बिजली की तरह घर घर पानी आने वाला. So when that scheme has, you must have heard Prime Minister talking about घर घर पानी quite a number of times.
Yeah, yeah.
So for next 20 years, you'll see this as a big opportunity. Now this is one area again where we are trying to
Actively.
Yeah, because distribution of power and distribution of water. So those are all at rural level.
Yeah.
Where we are quite strong. So we are trying to understand that line as well. And if we can get opportunity there, the huge potential out there.
Yeah. I'm trying to understand, which is the other kind of company which is possibly in southern India or something, which is operating in your sector, who's possibly caught in same ethos as yourself? Would you, are there any entrepreneurs or someone who you like those opportunities?
A company like Techno Electric.
Okay.
A Calcutta-based company, you must have heard of them.
Yeah.
And the promoter of the company, Mr. P.P. Gupta, I know him very well. He also follows the same policy of not trying to over-leverage himself. Pick up jobs that bring profit to the company. So that is the policy that he follows. And if you look at the financials of Techno Electric, you will come to know they are also very good, very strong.
Okay.
So that is the main reason. Another company is my younger brother's company, my younger brother and father, which you've already done. Also because we are both from following the policy of my father.
Yeah.
So that's the policy that we are following. So again, Lumino also, if you look at that, they are also following that same policy of
same principle. Yeah.
So same principle is being followed there as well. And apart from that, there is one more company you may have heard of it, Gupta Cables in Bhubaneswar. Gupta Power.
Okay.
The company is in a bit of stress in last a year or so, but if you look at that company from a decade point of view, the company is done. Now the policies that they follow is also very similar to the policies that we follow. So they've also
got it.
So apart from that, Polycab is doing very well. They are also KEI is doing very well. KEI is also in a similar line.
Okay.
EC is a bit different, but we can comparable KEI and my son is sitting with me, my elder son.
I know. I was going to ask you to your son. Say hello to him. The next question. Okay, we've asked a couple of serious questions. I just want to know who your role model is when it comes to doing business. Do you have a role model? Just want to know from you.
My role model would be my father. The policy that he follows, or the way he thinks, and the kind of patience that he has, the approach towards any subject that comes to him, any problem that comes to him, the way he handles those problems. And I mean, that is because I've been with him, so I really don't find anybody else more competent than my father. So he's been my role model. And I've learned everything from him. As I earlier told you, that I couldn't continue too much. So at a young age, when we had to start business, he was the person who was giving me all the guidance. So I practically learned everything from that stage and with him. So he's been my school, my college and everything.
Yeah.
So for me, he's
any other industrialist you look up to, whose life story has kind of inspired you?
Yeah, CESC, if you've heard of.
Goenka.
I really admire the way he works. He's also
I met him last year at Kolkata. If I had met, I would have definitely, I'd love to meet you as well. I spent some time with him. In fact, his interview was featured in the IIFL Wealth Tour publication, which came out last year. I'll send a copy to you. He's an amazing guy. Yeah, really amazing.
We have so many big industrialists, but then he has some level of not going overboard on any subject or any business. He's usually trying to contain and grow both together. So the philosophy he follows, I really admire that. And apart from him, the big names are usually, I always find them, like even if you talk about Reliance or Adani, I always find them too extravagant. So I don't know. Some are.
But Adani is against your principle. No, they are over leveraged, and
that is why I
entirely opposite.
I don't understand them too well. So I understand the philosophy of Sanjeev ji. He has a very good philosophy that really. Apart from that, even Rashmi Cementic, Patwari,
Can.
Sushil Patwari. So he's also a superb person, and the way he is handling his company, you must have seen the company's growth, the way it has been. So I really admire the way he works. Apart from that, there is also one company in Calcutta by the name of Shyam Cell Group. Mahavir Agarwal ji, Bhushan Agarwal. So they are also following the same principle of not over leveraging and very stable sort of business, not going overboard on anything. Thought process is very clear. That way, even you've rated Shyam Cell as well. Century Ply.
Agarwal again.
They are also known to us. So I really admire the way he thinks as well. So his thought process is also very good.
Yeah. Great. I think so. Priyank, so Gayatri, do you have any questions before I go?
Yes, yeah, I do. So, like, just a little, just to ask you, like, the way you've told me your story, and just wanted to understand, like, how do you really balance, when you started so young, and I'm sure there would have been so many challenges, I mean, growing business, family. So, like, one mantra that you have, that how do you, balance between work and personal life? And maybe, something that you could tell that, how did you manage to be so focused? When you obviously have to be focused, you have to have that balance to grow. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. So, what is that mantra? Like, I would love to know that mantra, your mantra.
One is being in a family, growing with the family, being in business. You will always face problems. I've been facing problems as well. And problems come across, maybe in a day you face 20 problems, and some days where you don't face any problem at all. So the way I handle my problems is that I have seen when there is a family problem or a problem between two people, the understanding is not clear. I've seen time is the best solution. So I usually try to give it time. I don't try to solve the problems immediately. After 3 days or 4 days, I usually get the clear idea of how to solve that problem. Whenever I try to solve a problem, on the instance of the problem occurring, I usually end up creating more problems. So patience is the biggest gift. Within 2-3 days, the idea comes across how to solve this problem. So that has been my philosophy. Don't try to solve any problem immediately, until and unless it's not a problem that needs attention immediately. That is another way. But otherwise, try to keep patience, give it some time, and within 2-3 days, your mind is locked up with a lot of ideas. One lock will open and you'll come up with a new idea to solve that problem. So our mind is very, very strong at coming up with solutions. It's just that we need to give our mind some time. So it will just start processing, and then next day you'll find, oh, there's a new solution to this problem. So that's the mantra that I've really followed. And I think I read an article published in a paper about Nikola Tesla. I'm a very big fan of Nikola Tesla, by the way. So the way he used to solve problem was exactly like this. That whenever he wanted to invent something, he used to think about it. And then when he went off to sleep, in his dream, sometimes the idea used to strike that I could solve this problem in this way. So those 2-3 days of that problem or that solution hunting, when it starts revolving in your mind, maybe after 2-3 days, suddenly it strikes that we could find the solution in that way. So I try to solve my problems maximum in that way, that try to spin it in your mind for 2-3 days and you'll come up with a solution. So that is the way I handle it. And the other one was about, you were talking about, mantra for
that should be.
There were two things that you asked me, I think. One was this problem, and then the other one was
how do you balance your personal and professional life? The calmness, and how do you balance that? Because with work pressure, I'm sure there are days that, a lot of us, what we do, we tend to carry our work back home. We can't draw that line that, okay, work is work, home is home. We need to balance. But I think we just get very, carried away. The new generation, we don't have patience. We get a little worked up. So how have you been able to do that?
See, I'll tell you, for me, I unwind. Let's say I unwind in a way where I pick up subjects. Like for me, picking up a subject of in last 1 year, I've been picking. I'm very keen on a subject of software development. So I pick up the subject of software development and try to learn how softwares are developed, what languages are used, how they are structured, how data is collected, how sense is made out of data, how they are connected with each other. So that becomes a subject for me which really helps me unwind. So I don't go ahead and see a movie or a serial to unwind myself. So for me, unwinding would mean try to understand. Of late, since last 1 year, software has been a very big subject for me for unwinding. So whenever I go home, I again pick up one more article on maybe Python, or one article on your visualization, business intelligence visualization. So I just pick them up and then I start studying about those ideas. So that is a very big unwind for me. Somehow I don't know, watching movies and watching serial has never been an unwinding for me, or just hanging out with friends, having a drink. That has not been an unwinding idea for me. So that is supposed to happen. Of course, I do that. But mostly it has been the biggest unwind for me is concentrating on a new subject.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Really inspiring.
I started studying about COVID. So that also became a good unwinding process for me.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it's truly inspiring, your story. I mean, from the age that you started to the level you've come, I think it's amazing, sir. It's amazing.
Okay, so the next question is, you said you're the biggest fan of Nikola Tesla. So what, according to you, went wrong with Mr. Tesla? I mean, he's one of those unsung heroes, right?
Unsung heroes.
Even in my office, one of the posters that I keep is of Mr. Tesla's. So it's quite coincidental. But I found him very innovative, going against the tide. But I just want to know from you what went wrong with him, or what happened, Mr. Tesla.
I personally feel he was a person who had the nature of getting drowned in a subject. So the subject that he used to pick up, he used to get drowned in that subject. Now, of course, the things that he invented, he couldn't have done that without getting drowned in that subject. But the collateral damage was, of course, you can't sustain yourself financially if you want to get drowned in that subject. So balancing both parts was not possible. If you would have tried to balance both the parts, he would not have been able to invent things that he did. It was impossible for him. So only because he could drown himself in that subject, he came up with such wonderful ideas on which our world is standing today. So, of course, our world has not been able to reward him in that way at the time when he was alive. Now we are able to recognize his talent. But that talent couldn't have come through if he had not drowned himself. For that, of course, you have to lose. So the collateral damage was the financial loss that he suffered.
And who would you rather want your children to learn from Edison or from Tesla?
Very tough. Tough one. Edison was a very big businessman. Maybe there are very few things that he's invented. He's always bought invention. So in today's age, of course, I'll have to tell them be Edison, not Tesla. Edison was the person who was always buying. So his name is not because of, he's not done too much of new inventions. He's always bought inventions and put his name, his stamp on it that yes, it's mine now.
Yeah, but I think he was a better businessman probably, more than an inventor, so to speak. Yeah. So the next question is on. Did you watch the movie Current Wars? Current Wars. Yeah, I'll recommend that. You'd probably like it. It's about the fight between Edison and his contemporaries. It was released early this year.
Okay.
Tesla to talk about everybody.
It's a collection of various other small episodes of Edison, which has been compiled into a movie, I think. So small episodes of Edison I've already seen. That where how
yeah.
Edison managed to grow to that level by utilizing the ideas of others. That I've seen, but maybe yes, being compiled into a single movie would be really great fun to watch.
And so, what are your hobbies other than learning software engineering? What do you do for
1 year,
you read?
1 year. Yeah, so since 1 year, my new hobby has been my grandson. He takes away about 4 hours of my day. So, and
you have various hobbies. Every year, hobby changes. Sometimes music.
So this year, that's why I told him, no, that 1 year, since last 1 year, it has been my grandson.
So you can tell him a few other hobbies of yours. Music is there, food is there, traveling.
Not too much, I do it, but for me, my actual hobby has been trying to develop something in my manufacturing unit, trying to develop something new, which is an innovative thing in my manufacturing unit. So if I have to really spend time, free time, then I'll look at some parts, look at some new processes to manufacture that same product, because I've come up with many innovative ideas in my manufacturing unit as well. So for me, that becomes my hobby, that okay, I'm now looking at the machine, trying to understand, and then trying to do a new development, new research to upgrade my machine into the next level. So I usually like to do that.
Are you learning any new programming languages?
Yeah.
Or what have you learned?
Not languages, not coding exactly. How coding works. See, because I can't go into the process of coding, but how a code can be utilized.
Yeah.
That is where I start to think. If there are data which are very heavy, now very heavy data, how do you look at it? Now in an Excel, there is a limitation of the number of data that you can put into an Excel and make sense out of it, process that data. So those kind of things I've started learning of late. That is, there is a limitation to this, limitation to that. How do I program certain problems that I face? So I try to understand how language works. So coding, of course, I can't do. That is not, but I can, of course, understand the language and how I can utilize it in my way.
Got it. Okay. Next question. You don't have to answer if it is too political, but then you said you've been working with government in a lot of projects. So you would possibly be one of those entrepreneurs who knows how visionary a government is. From your perspective, what is the best sort of government that is taking us to the next level? Is it the current government, or you've had experience? What are your thoughts on how this government is doing?
Current government is really doing well. The thought process of the current government is very clear, and our country is really going to grow to great heights with this government continuing. That is clear in my mind.
Yeah. So basically, one of the best part about the current government is they're making all the foundation, which was a bit archaic, making it a little more stronger, which we would really need it for the
systems that have come in. Now, if you look at GST, monetization, of course, they have their own their own downsides, but they have their upsides as well. So, for a company to grow, the right opportunity has come now.
Absolutely.
During the earlier times, there were many companies who were not operating in a proper fashion. Scrupulously companies were just fly-by-night operators. Those things have all gone now. So opportunity for companies doing well has increased in that way. And growth, I expect that after this winter season getting over and the vaccine coming, I see the government really running after growth. I expect at least 20 to 30% of our GDP being spent on infra in the next coming few years.
Nice. Very good. And what time do you wake up every day? How is your daily routine? And when do you sleep?
I wake up at around 7-8 o'clock and then do my exercise a bit. I have to, of course, as you asked me earlier, how do I concentrate so much? I try to keep myself fit, not too fat. So that is the way my brain can remain active throughout the day. If I pick up too much weight, then after having my lunch or after having my dinner, I'll start falling asleep or lazy. So that is why I try to keep my body sleep. So in the morning, I do my exercises, and then After some time, I leave for the office and do my work. So in the morning, at around 7, 8 o'clock, get up, do my exercises. I'm quite a boring guy in that way.
And when do you sleep? What time do you sleep every day?
11 o'clock.
Okay. Okay. Great. I think these are a bunch of my questions. And what would be your advice to young entrepreneurs in India, number one? And number two, the entrepreneurs who engage with the government as clients, right? What would be your advice to these two categories of people?
One would be do not get carried away. When you're working with government, there are instances when you get carried away with government officials trying to get into trouble. So you have to really control yourself. Don't get carried away. Don't over leverage yourself. Those are the two basic things that I would say the current generation and the upcoming generation should follow. That way, your company can run for a longer period of time and will continue to grow steadily.
Yeah. Okay, great. I think thank you very much